Hey guys, it is Marcus and Terry with you. Terry, if you want to say something, let us know how the audio levels are before we start. That would be good.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Hey, RJS, how you doing? And Matt, good to see you.
All right. Cool. We got some new lighting too, so let me know how the new lighting is. We're trying that out, so let's bring this up here. And today, what we're going to do is we're talking about alcoholism, we're talking about mindfulness and spirituality, and we're talking about crazy religious people in sobriety. So it'll be an interesting topic. If you guys are listening in, let us know how the audio levels are sounding for you. Just give us like a audio level good or bad or something. Let us know how it is, or if one of us sounds too low, let us know.
Your lighting's
And
good, Marcus.
cool, yeah, and the new lighting should be good. The only problem I have with the lighting is we get the glares on the board, which I guess for the sober one's okay because we're doing this board here, which is good. All right, so let's go ahead and dive right into it and talk about what's going on here. A lot of people have heard about meditation and Buddhist monks and things like that. A lot of people have heard about spirituality in addiction. A lot of stuff out there in addiction literature talks about, and I think I have a book here, actually talks about spirituality and religion. And if I can find the book for you guys, I'll show you. It's like a huge book, and it talks about the history of recovery over the last like 100 years or something. I don't know if it's in here or in the other. Up there it is. Cool. It's called Slaying the Dragon. Gigantic book. And it goes through all the years of what happened in America in regards to addiction. And what I find interesting about this is it starts out as a moral issue. And a lot of people start this out and they're like, okay, well, addiction is this moral, spiritual issue, and we need to conquer it that way. And the founders of AA and the founders of a lot of other recovery programs kind of went the religious angle because there's another book, which I don't know if I have it. I know I have it on tape, which is called The Varieties of Religious Experience, which was by William something, I believe. I forget the name, but I have it somewhere. And this book talks about how people have religious experiences. So I want you to put yourself back in the day of like 1920s, early 1920s, before the 1920s. And you had these people that were drinking, much like we have our issues with drinking. And you have a religious crowd that's very, hey, you know what? This is a moral issue. You got to stay home with your kids. You got to do this stuff. You can't be out at the bar. So it's a big moral issue. And then you had like street preachers of the day, which those of you guys who know me, I used to be a street preacher like 17, I guess almost 20 years ago now. And they were preaching, hey, you need to have this religious experience. So all around the time, there was this whole idea of, okay, a guy can't get past his addictions. A guy can't get over his quote unquote sins. He needs to have a spiritual awakening. He needs to get born again or whatever. And so this crept into the recovery literature. And if you look at the founders of AA, it comes from what was known as the Oxford Group, which was a religious organization. So they kind of tackled it not from scientific, but more from a religious angle. Now, for me personally, I get the idea. I get the idea of, okay, spiritual awakening, which we look at spiritual awakening. We'll put that up here, right? We'll call it SA. Okay, so the spiritual awakening, a lot of people look to a certain religion. They say, okay, well, spiritual awakening to get past alcohol is about meeting Jesus or going to the Latter-day Saints church or going to the Catholic church or whatever church it is. They say, this is what you need. Now, again, I want you to remember that this was back in early 1900s, 1800s, when they didn't know what to do with alcoholics. These people were drunk. They were falling all over. They're like, what do I do with this guy? And the church said, well, we have some answers. And out of that grew a lot of our modern day AA type stuff, which is good, right? Now, what we have to do is we have to kind of separate certain things from other certain things, because what you're going to learn in recovery, if you guys have seen my book wall, there's a lot of books on recovery. And I think my book wall, just to be transparent with you, is probably 10% addiction. The rest is like, I have some spiritual stuff and I have some business stuff, lots of business stuff. But we have to look at that and say, no one thing is perfect. No one way of recovery is totally perfect, right? And so what I like to do is I like to look at it from a scientific standpoint. of what's going on in our mind. Now, Terry, what was your experience with this? I don't know if we ever talked about how you stood religiously with things before or after sobriety. What was that like for you?
Well, let me. I was raised in a Roman Catholic family.
Mm-hmm.
Had to go to church every Sunday until I was 16.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was 16, my dad said, "Okay, if you want to keep going to church, you're welcome to keep going, or if you want to stop, you can stop." And I said, "Had to have a good time." And that was kind of my upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't practice religion or Christianity or Catholicism
Mm-hmm.
anymore after that,
Okay.
although I still had a belief of God or some higher power of some sort, but it was a punishing God, as many people that have gone through the Catholic religion probably know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was kind of it. Is I just thought that I couldn't do things wrong or I'd go to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And as I went through life, my prayers would be, God, get me out of this one. That's really
Yeah.
what it would come down to,
Mm-hmm.
and that's about it. And as my drinking continued to escalate over decades, it would get, I just got worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as my religious practices, there was none. I was always a nice guy,
Mm-hmm.
and
You're still a nice guy, Terry.
oh, thanks, man. But that when my drinking got to its worst point,
Mm-hmm.
um, I didn't pray that God or a higher power would help me get out of my addiction or anything. I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
When I finally I decided on my own to go to rehab,
Mm-hmm.
and so I went to rehab, and they introduce AA there. They have meetings. What was it? 5 days a week. They had the AA
Mm-hmm.
meetings. One day they had the NA meeting. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what it was. It was something like that.
Yep.
And that introduced a higher power. And they told me about it doesn't have to be God. It could be the doorknob to get into a meeting. It could be
Mm-hmm.
the people in the meeting itself. Just something that's a higher power than you.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of liked that. And that was pretty good. And so I got out of rehab and I was told to go to AA meetings, and I went to a couple. Showed up right when they start, left right when they ended, didn't talk to anybody, arms crossed, sit in the back or the corner. And, sure enough, about a month later, I started drinking again.
Mm-hmm.
And after about a month of drinking, I realized I had to quit. I was desperate, and I quit and went through the withdrawals and had seizures and ended up in a coma and woke up. And I called a guy from AA that had contacted me when I was in rehab, and I went back to AA meetings, and he told me, "Don't worry about whether you believe in a higher power or not. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter."
Mm-hmm.
And just make that higher power, just like what I said earlier, is just make it the group of people that are here, group of drunks. There you go, God, group of
Mm-hmm.
drunks. And that's what I did. And I do have spirituality now,
Mm-hmm.
and whether there's a God or not, it doesn't matter, as long as I have to live life in a positive, loving, productive way, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what works for me right now. And
Yeah.
that seems to be the answer for me. And yeah, I have religious beliefs, but I don't think that they're absolutely necessary. And AA does say that, although God, the word God and Him are all over the Big Book.
Yeah.
And for me, I just don't let that be a hindrance. For me, open-mindedness is the key for my sobriety, being open to whatever people have to say. I don't worry about what other people are telling me or what they're thinking. I worry about what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I
And
find that just honestly living the good life and doing the right thing and helping others is really the way. And I think that follows in most religious principles anyways.
yeah, and I think a lot of it is for an alcoholic. I think not drinking is spiritual. Like for an alcoholic, what you're doing is when you're drinking, you're caving into everything your flesh and your mind desire. So you're like, okay, I'm completely caving in because I can't run life this way, or I'm completely caving in because of this. And it's kind of like, I know we've touched on it before, the Abraham's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where he's like, okay, down on the bottom, you have your need for like food. Up on the top, it's like the need for spirituality. And what happens is alcohol brings us down to the base level where we're like, okay, I'm in survival mode. I need to get by. I need to not feel this. I need to do that. And you're all in yourself rather than looking to something else. And for me, I look at spirituality as like, okay, it's not me. Like, I don't know what kind of higher power is. I got my hypothesis of what it might be.
Sure.
But I don't know. And I don't think any of us really can emphatically say that we know, because as I tell people, a lot of people know me. I came from a heavy religious background. We grew up in a church that was started in Southern California, and it was like the Jesus People movement. And this church was very dogmatic of their certain stuff, and they have churches everywhere, and they were like, this is the way it is. We know how it is. If you're different than us, you're wrong. And they were very emphatic, and I actually grew up in that church, and I started preaching with that church in my late teens, early 20s, where we would just stand on a street corner and preach to a bunch of people who didn't want to hear what we had to say, which was kind of interesting. And a lot of people got angry. I remember the first night I preached, we would stand on a little soapbox, because those who know me, I'm like 5'1" on a good day. And the guy I preached with was like 5'3" on a good day. And we'd stand on a soapbox and preach. And I remember the first time I was there, I worked up enough courage to finally preach in front of everyone. And this guy, ironically, was a drunk homeless guy. And he comes and shoves me off of the stool or step box into a tree. And I'm like, wow, okay, this preaching thing's a little harder than I thought, because now I'm getting this, but it didn't bug me too much. And I remember being very dogmatic about what I believed. And I remember how it hindered me in life. Because as I tell a lot of people, I go back and forth with my dad and my family about religious stuff all the time. And I'm like, the minute that you know exactly how God is the minute that you've become him. Like, if I can sit here and say God is this way, this way, this way, he can't change from this, then I have now become God, because I'm now telling him what he can and cannot do. I'm now telling him exactly how he is, and in a dogmatic way. And I find that oftentimes, for me, when I was going through my drinking, I still had the religion in the back of my mind. I still believed it. And I remember at one point I would get mad, like, okay, well, I used to preach, I used to do this stuff. Why am I addicted? Why am I drunk? Why can't I get out of it? And I remember that as like a hindrance, because it's like, okay, now I'm not really looking for solutions. I'm looking at the problem. And the problem is I'm drinking. The solution is, okay, I need to do something outside of what I feel right now, because right now I feel miserable. I feel this. I want to go drink because it'll make me feel different, right? And that was kind of like the transaction was like, okay, I'm going to do this to feel better. And I was like, okay, well, now I'm spiritually devoid or whatever. And I felt like I was spiritually not good or bad, or the guy who's going to hell, as Terry said, felt like that. And it didn't help me with my addiction. Now, a lot of people will say this. I remember I was talking to my dad a couple of weeks ago about my brother. You guys have heard the story of how I think he's sober now. He had a kid and he's sober now. He had a long issue with drinking and drugs and stuff. And my dad was like, he's sober now. And I'm like, that's good. Is he doing anything? He's like, oh, no. He found Jesus. He doesn't need all that other crap. And I'm like, okay, well, that's good for him if that works. But I want you guys to really look at it and say, what is going to work for you? Because we got to look at it from a scientific aspect and say, what's going on? That's why I like books like Varieties of Religious Experience, because it talks about what's going on. It's like, okay, why did these people fall in the road when the guy preached? Well, it's because they didn't eat. They've been standing for a long time. They were mass hypnotized. And that's what happens when you put people in that. When we come over to sobriety, we say, okay, well, what are the things that work and what are the things that don't need to be there, right? And we kind of look at it like, okay, well, what works? Well, we know that when you have church type stuff, one, it adds an element to your life of reaching out to other people and being honest with other people, which is good. AA provides that as well. Our talk show, or whatever you want to call this, does that as well, where you can reach out, you could talk about things, you understand, you listen to people who are like-minded. Another thing is it gets your view off of yourself. Like if I go out there and I become a radical Christian or radical whatever, like I really believe what I'm preaching or whatever, my focus is now off of myself, right? And if my focus is off of myself, then I'm not sitting around thinking about drinking. This is why a lot of people in recovery are like, hey, the secret is go help other people. Why? Because if I'm helping Bob, I'm not worried about myself. I'm helping Bob, right? And it kind of changes the way things are. Does that make sense to everyone? Right? How that's kind of working, where it's like, okay, these are the things that are working. Because I know a lot of people, right, they look at recovery and they freak out because they're like, do I have to get a Bible? Do I have to like become, a church guy? Do I need to wear a tie? What is it? And the answer is no. You don't need to do anything except what works to not drink.
Right.
Right. You need to focus on what is going to stop you from drinking. Now, if that is going the religious route, fine, good, wonderful. But just be careful that you don't trade this for something else, right? Be careful that you're not trading your drinking for another obsession or another thing, which is really common. And that's why I wanted to bring in the mindfulness part of this as well, because a lot of times you'll have the crazy religious people that are like, this is what you need to do, this is what you need to have. And it's fine, it's good. Like for me, if my brother does the whole thing on religious, that's good. He's not drinking. I'm happy, he's happy, everything's good. And that works. Right? Some of you guys it'll work for, some of you guys need something else. And just as a thought, just to kind of let me and Terry know, type what you think about religion in recovery. Like, what do you think about that? Are you against it? I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to do the God thing. Are you for it? Are a lot of people like, well, hey, maybe I do need to do that. And we'll kind of get a touch on that. And then we'll bring in the whole mindfulness. But Terry, what are your thoughts on that kind of stuff?
Well, one other thing that helps with maybe being involved with a religious organization or just something else
Mm-hmm.
is it takes up your time.
Mm-hmm.
And really, one of my main problems was when I was drinking is I had all the time in the world because I quit my job, I
Mm-hmm.
quit my wife, I quit everything, quit my friends, and I had nothing to do. And so there I was in myself all the time. I had nothing to do. And when I first got sober, that was also something that I still had all this time on my hands. I had nothing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hit AA meetings. I actually went to church and I just did stuff that would keep me busy because I knew that sitting at home was a dangerous thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it and to me that's why I had this opinion of it doesn't matter whether they're about God or not, as far as if I believe in God or not.
Mm-hmm.
Just stay busy, do the right thing, and don't worry about what other people are thinking, whether there is a God, there isn't a God, whether they're fanatical about it. Let them
Mm-hmm.
be what they're going to be. And I just had to focus on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I did not want to become a fanatic, so I didn't.
Yeah.
And that was just part of my mindfulness. I had to have a balance with my life, so I did that. I started exercising. It
Mm-hmm.
was just one of the tools, of the many tools that we have to stay sober, and that's what worked for me.
And I think also one of the things that I notice is getting my focus off of the fact that I know things. Like for me, my awakening slash sobriety would be realizing that I didn't know everything, realizing that everything. So a lot of people get mad at the fact that AA literature, and again, this isn't an AA show. Terry goes to AA sometimes. I go once in a while. That's not what this is about, but I know that that's what the mainstream is looking at in terms of recovery. So that's why we talk about it. And if it works for you, cool. There's a lot of people who get sober through it, and if that's one of the tools you use, that's good. But a lot of it, I forgot where I was going with that. Somewhere.
That's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Um,
some of the people I talk to that have like 30, 40 years of sobriety,
mhm,
it's interesting because they talk about what Marcus had just mentioned. They're like, I don't know. I
mhm,
have no idea.
yeah.
And it doesn't matter. And that's, you know, the most of the fanaticals that I see in meetings, or they're they're usually not sober a long time. I'm not saying everybody, but
Mhm,
they're somewhat new, and that's what they're finding is working for them for the time.
mhm. Yeah, and for me, I think where I was going with that is the idea of uncertainty, the idea of I don't know. Because when you look at it, a lot of people get mad at the literature that says a God of your own understanding because they say, well, no, God's this way. And it's like, well, is that not also a God of your understanding? Is not any God that we think of a God of our own understanding? I mean, it's in your mind, it's your understanding. If you understand it different than I do, then we both have a God of our understanding. Because there is no way, like, until God comes down and is like, well, Bob's right, Marcus, go to hell or whatever, until that happens, we don't actually know. And I think the key is realizing that, because that to me is the ultimate acceptance. Like that to me, like, hey, I don't know. I, I think I have ideas, but at the end of the day, I don't know. And we got to look at that and we got to understand it and say, I don't know what's going to happen. Like for me, I don't know if I'll be sober tomorrow. I hope so. I've been sober a while. I like it, but I don't know what's going to happen. We look at these things and it's like so many people are spending their entire life trying to figure out what happens after they die or whatever. And it's like, you don't know. You're spending your whole life on opinions and ideas and things. And when you get to a point where you say, I don't know. Like I can think things, but I don't ultimately know. And I think for me that was the most freeing thing because I was so hung up on being right. I was so hung up on knowing. I was so hung up on I'm right, you're wrong, this is right. Instead of, hey, we're all here, we're all doing this together. I don't know. I don't know what's going to keep one guy sober or one guy not. I don't know, what God is or what God isn't, or what political views right or what isn't. I got my ideas and I kind of like them, but I don't know. Um, and I think we got some comments here that are addressing this. Let me see if I got my mouse here so I could scroll down the comments. A couple interesting ones. Let's see. So we got Megan, she's 15 days sober. Awesome. Longest she's been in 4 years. Can't believe it. And she feels great. Awesome, Megan. That is really cool. Great to hear. Keep it up. Alex is 3 weeks sober. Awesome, Alex. You want to take some of these as well?
Sure. Good to see you,
Cool.
Randy and Michael. And Randy, you're 62 days sober, and RJS, you just joined AA reading the big book at the moment.
Cool.
Good for you, man. Right on. It's got a
Cool.
lot of good stuff in there. Um,
There it is.
Bama Chick, hey everyone. Jason, good morning. Jason said, I think it just comes down to a higher power of your own understanding and your own path of spiritual path. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's kind of how I think about it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. THC Gamer, good to see you again, man. Hello, guys. I come before you with a splint on the right leg and 5 days sober. I fractured my heel bone. You live and learn, right? Hello to all watching. Don't drink. Take it from me. Never worth it. And that would be the case for me, too. I know something like that would happen with me if I started drinking again.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I got a little story about my friend that's just started drinking again. It's pretty tough. But do you want to take more comments, or shall I go into that?
Yeah, let's hear the story. I think it'll be helpful. Then we'll go into some others. We got like 35 minutes, so we're good.
Well, this isn't too long of a story, but
Mm-hmm.
here's what happened with my a good friend of mine, and he's been sober about a year less than I have, so he's had some sobriety. He had 17 years in the past, and then he had difficulties, and his uh, his MO would always be like get in an accident, car accident, or something like hurting his leg, and then have surgery, and then get the pain pills, usually something like OxyContin or something, and that would then he'd get into alcohol, and he about a couple weeks ago, he had to get a hand surgery, and he got the OxyContin. And generally, for an addict, what's suggested is that if you get something like an opiate that for pain, that you give it to somebody else and they prescribe it to you. They give it to you like it says two every 6 hours or whatever,
Mhm.
and that's how you follow it. Well, he didn't do that, and then he started drinking, and he just kind of disappeared off the map. And then eventually, we finally found him, and I went and saw him, and this dude was a mess. One shoe on, one shoe off, hadn't showered in a week. And this is the danger of this disease is that, he went from living a good life, he had his house, now he's basically pretty close to getting kicked out and, may have lost his job, almost lost his life, where I actually am not sure right now. But he was a mess, and we tried to get him into a detox center. They didn't have any beds, so he had to hang out at home overnight. And I think his wife had to get him booze because it's dangerous for somebody to just suddenly go through detox.
Mhm.
Anyways, the next day, his wife got him into the detox center while they went to the emergency room and got the meds that they needed for detox and went to the center. And right now, well, the next day, he had to go back to the emergency room with severe acute alcohol withdrawal syndrome. And his life for the past day or two is touch and go. That's the danger of this disease. He
Mhm.
didn't drink for 3 years. And when he started drinking, he was right where he left off, or maybe even the disease progressed a little. And that's what happens is we take that one drink or take that oxy or whatever, and it can propel us right back into the disease in no time at all.
Mhm.
And so what did he do wrong? Did he not have a higher power? I don't know. I don't think so. But whatever. It he
Yeah,
started drinking again. Does he need to find God in a big way to get sober again? Maybe. Maybe
mhm.
not. I don't know. But he definitely is in some difficulty right now.
Yeah. And what I look at too is like, what is it that causes someone? So we look at your friend, and usually with relapse, it's either like a trigger of something outside. So maybe a spouse leaves or someone dies or financial hardship or whatever. Something triggers them and they're like, I can't deal with this, so I'm going to drink. Oftentimes, also, we hear about someone who is prescribed some kind of pills and doesn't take guard, right? Like Terry said, take guard. Have someone that, I don't care if you have to drive to the doctor to get your daily pill, do what you got to do. For me, I've had things in the past, and I know just by the way my body works, I would probably like those a little too much, right? I would probably be like, wow, these are great. Now I can sit here and I could be like, I'm 4.5 years sober. I got this handled. I don't need someone to count my pills, but I don't know what's going to happen when my brain is chemically altered. I don't know what's going to happen if I stayed up for 2 days straight. I don't know how my guard's going to be down. And that's a thing we have to look at is you have this cycle that you go through, right? And there's a cycle. And you might be sitting here and you're like, hey, I'm doing good. I'm sober. Been sober a couple days, couple weeks, couple years, whatever, decades, right? And you're like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good. And you're here and you're happy and you're wonderful. Now, what happens is something starts the cycle. Now, for me, I know I've had things that produce a similar effect where maybe I took something when I had a cold and I was like, oh, that's kind of nice. I'm not coughing, but I'm also kind of altered. And my brain kind of likes that. It's like, hey, we like to be altered or whatever. And that kind of spirals it. And now I've set up safeguards where I'm like, okay, is there someone I can talk to? Is there something I can do? Because if I ever had something that was like that, maybe one day at lunch I get a drink or something, and it starts the cycle. And what's happening is it's triggering all the stuff in your brain. It's bringing back that involuntary recall of memories of good times and good feelings that you had with your drug of choice or your alcohol. And then it puts you in this spiral where you're like, okay, well, this is great, got to have it. And then you're down here and you feel like crap and you have more and you can't get out of the cycle because you don't know how because you're feeling like crap now. And in literally a matter of days, I've seen it happen. Terry's seen it happen. You go back from being on cloud 9 to, holy crap, I'm in the shits with one freaking shoe on and not showering, and I'm in the ER, like on deathbed because of this. And we have to look at that and say, what's going to happen? Do we need to like get on our knees and pray? Well, that's one of the things that can break you out of the cycle. We all know the cycle all too well. The cycle is, I don't feel good. Alcohol is the only thing that's going to help it, right? It doesn't really help it because we never really feel good. But what happens is down here, when you feel like shit, right, and you have a drink, you're like, wow, I feel good. And your baseline's here. And you forget, hey, I was up here a week ago. Now I'm like fighting for crumbs from the freaking dog table because this feels good now. Right? And you're like fighting for this every day. And you're like, man, I feel like shit again. I'm going to fight for this. And you have these ups and downs and you feel like crap. And something needs to break in. Something needs to happen. For the friend, maybe it was Terry coming over to be like, dude, you ready? Are you done? Let's go get fixed. Maybe something needs to happen like that. That's why sometimes interventions work. That's why sometimes religious stuff works. For me, I remember when I was a kid and I started getting really religious, I remember one day I woke up and I was like, wow, I think about God all the time now. That's kind of interesting. Now, was that because of some esoteric spiritual thing? If esoteric is used correctly, probably not, but I'll sound smart today with big words. Is it because of that, or is it because my mind is now attuned to it? It's much like when you go and you're going to buy a new car. Well, we'll pretend it's a green car, right? And you're going to buy a new car and you're like, okay, this car looks really cool. I like it. It's a green Toyota, right? And now all of a sudden you're driving home and you're like, man, these green Toyotas are everywhere. There's one. I've never noticed. Did they just manufacture 1 million more green Toyotas in my city today? No, your brain just tunes to it. Did I all of a sudden change my whole way of thought? No, my brain attuned to it. Now with mindfulness, you're controlling what your brain attunes to. So if you have all these thoughts, because your thoughts are going to go by, one will be about a green car, another will be about maybe I don't want to relapse, or maybe I want to drink, or whatever. Another will be about money, right? And you're like, money. Another will be about houses or kids or school or whatever it is that you're into. These are all the things that are in your thoughts. They go by. It's like a river. We watch our thoughts. Hey, I want to drink. Now, some people are going to be like, hey, I want to drink. Shit, I'm bad. Why did I think that? I'm sober. Why did I think that I want to drink? What is wrong with me? Instead of looking at it and saying, well, I drank for 10 years. Obviously, I'm going to think about drinking because that's all I did for 10 years. I probably had, 20 drinks a day for 10 years. So I drank 6,000 times a year for 10 years. That's 60,000 drinks. 60,000 times my mind was like, yay, drink, yay, wonderful, feel good drink. Of course I'm going to think about it, right? The car, of course you're going to see it. Now, these things are natural and they're going to happen in your mind anyway. So what you want to do is you don't want to look at them as good or bad. You want to be mindful and say, a thought is just a thought is just a thought. And I don't know, right? I remember when I was first getting out of my spirituality stuff, I remember one time when I was drinking and I was like, I hate God, right? I was like, I said that out loud. And I was like, wow, I said that. What's wrong? I'm going to go, like, why am I not combusting into flames right now? Because a thought is a thought is a thought, and it doesn't mean anything. Now, I grew up in a super religious church, and they were very big on take every thought captive, right? They said, take every thought. If you think this, if you think that, if you think pretty girl, if you think drink, if you think, crooked or whatever, that's bad. And I would sit there and I would literally wrestle every thought and be like, wow, that's bad. Why did I have it? Oh, that's a good one. I'm good now. When in actuality, I'm just a chemical being that has thoughts. If I watch a bunch of TV, I'm probably going to think about like crime scene investigating because that's what my wife likes to watch. If you watch comedy, you're probably going to be funny. Why am I funny to some people? Well, some people think I'm funny. Because I watched a lot of comedy. It's natural. It's going to happen. So we got to look at that and we got to understand it and we got to end this battle of I'm right, you're wrong. This is what you need. This is what you don't need. And we got to get into the place of sometimes we don't know. Sometimes thoughts are just thoughts. Sometimes life is just life. And sometimes good things happen to bad people. Sometimes bad things happen to good people. We don't know. And the minute we try to like go into it and try to understand and try to dissect it and try to know, that's when we get into the danger zone because we really don't. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. Absolutely. Good points.
Okay, let's see. T. Led says, God does matter. If you don't believe that Jesus Christ died for your sins and don't accept him as Lord and Savior and follow him, you'll burn in hell for all eternity. Imagine if anyone here died tonight. Well, we don't know, right? I could have a Jesus of my understanding, someone else can, and we could fight about who's wrong or right, or we can come to an agreement of, I don't know. There's a guy who's probably in the middle of China reading the Bible who understands it different than me here in America. And we have to understand that. We need to get to a point where we say, right now, I am who I am in my thought life because I've been programmed that way. You're programmed by society, you're programmed by family, you're programmed by school. Everything is programmed you a certain way. I read a book, I get a different interpretation than someone in India who reads a book. And we have to look at that and say, well, I don't know who's right or wrong. I don't know. Maybe not. Right? Maybe hell was like the hill of Gehenna that never stopped burning or whatever. If you study it, there's a school of thought about that. And we don't know. It might have been, might not have been. I don't know. And we have to look at that and say, I'm open to whatever. And I think that if someone wants to get really religious about it, that would be the best thing to do, is having the trust of, I don't know. Because what is better than saying, I don't know? My life's in your hands, and I don't know because I'm not God. But whatever is. And I think that's the best thing about the higher power issue, is realizing that you're not it. Realizing that this is me. And if you want to imagine 8 billion other dots, that's a lot of dots, don't have time to draw them. That's how significant I am in the earth. I'm one of 8 billion. I'm no better than you. I'm no worse than you. I'm just me, right? And if we look at that, I think that helps a lot of people. All right. Let's see.
Yeah,
Go
I'll
ahead.
take one.
Okay.
So Megan says, I believe any person has the ability to get sober if they really want to, regardless of what their religious views are. And I'm a Catholic myself. I believe God has helped me, but I don't think you have to be and religious to be sober. Yeah, I'd agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can get sober, definitely. My brother's been sober for 30 years, and he has a lot of faith. He attends um, a Christian church, and he's very involved in that. And he's not very involved in AA. He does AA here and there, but mostly he's involved in his church, and that's what works.
Mm-hmm.
And I know many people that do not attend church at all, and there's actually a lot of atheists in AA as well, and they can get sober too.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody can get sober. It's
Yep.
just being mindful. For me, it was honesty, open-mindedness, and
Yeah.
willing to do what I had to do. Those are the three
And
keys for me. Go
I
ahead.
think also making a plan. Like,
Yeah,
what is it that certain religious people do that gets them results? Right?
right.
Let's look at that rather than the content of what they're saying. Look at what they do. Right? Does he wake up every day and pray? That's a change in his mindset. That's a change in his daily routine. So maybe you wake up and you do something else. Maybe it's meditate. Maybe it's mow the lawn or whatever it is that brings you to center. And for me, in my own life, I have this thing in my mind that I call returning to center, right? And I know when I get out of whack and I get off base, I say, well, Marcus, let's return to center. Let's realize right now I'm okay. Right now everything's all right. Right now I don't have to drink. And that's kind of my little ritual of bringing myself back and saying, hey, I don't have to drink right now, right? And look at that, because one of the most important things I learned in rehab, and luckily I had what couldn't have been the most perfect counselor, right? This guy was like perfect for me at the time. He was like, okay, I've studied the books you've studied. I've read this stuff. I was religious like you in a certain aspect. And so it was perfect. And he said to me, he said, Marcus, don't be picky about where you get your truth. And at that time I was very like, okay, don't listen to this guy, listen to this guy. Don't listen to that guy, listen to this guy. And I was very dogmatic about it. And he opened my mind to say, well, hey, you know what? Sometimes some weird person that I don't agree with will have a truth that will work for me.
Absolutely.
Right? And look at the results rather than all the other stuff, because the results speak for themselves. If you see a guy who's like 50,000 years sober and he's never wavered, and you like the life that that guy has, and you're like, I kind of want that, follow the steps he did, because success leaves clues, and the things that people do is what gets them where they are. What do alcoholics that are sober, what do they not do? They don't drink. They don't go to bars. They don't spend time thinking about drinking all the time. They do the opposite. They focus on recovery. They focus on things outside of themselves. They focus on the fact that our life is futile. It's a minute. It's a blip, right? Your job loss might seem big right now, but in the grand scheme of things, maybe it's a blessing. Maybe it's not. Who knows, right? And we got to look at it that way. And we got to be accepting of, we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
I don't know, right? So, all right, let's take a couple others here. We got Richard says, my problem with AA is that the courts use it as a requirement if drugs or alcohol was used when a crime was done, and AA is not a science-based program, and they don't update the program to better help the alcohol. Richard, I think the best thing for that is don't be picky about where you get your truth. I've read the big book. I think I have it printed out here with some notes. I think this is it. No, that's the greatest sales letters. We don't want that one. But I have it around here printed out with notes. There's a lot of good stuff in the big book. There's a lot of great stuff. For me, the big book is valuable in terms of the stories other people went through. That was very important to my sobriety, to hear other stories people went through, because I felt like I was alone. There's also, there's power in the steps. Like, you look at the steps, and I truly think that if someone did all of them, you're probably not going to be the same person you were when you started, right? Like, if you honestly do them, inevitably you're going to have a certain thing. Like, if I start digging in my backyard and I keep digging, eventually I'm going to have a big hole, right? That's going to happen. Same kind of thing with the steps. Now, do you have to go through every one? I think I got through number 4. And I did that in rehab, and I didn't do a whole lot. I never really studied the steps, but I took them, and I was like, wow, let's see if I have a book around here. But I did that, and it was like, oh, that works, right? Did you find that as well, Terry? There it is.
Yeah, for me, I'm a person that drank for 37 years, and I didn't really know how to deal with a lot of things in life. I think part of me did not mature. And what the steps have done for me is they've taught me how to deal with life, not just the bad things, but the good things. And they've taught me what to do in difficult situations. And each step has a principle associated with it, and it's helped me a lot. And yeah, you're right. Working through the steps does make you a different person. Maybe not a different person, but it's refined me as a better person, and a person that can stay sober. And I know what to do in those difficult situations where maybe a drink is what I want instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's, I got a lot of things underlined here that are good things, right? So, whether you agree with spiritual stuff or not, there's good things. Now, are there some things that certain recovery programs do wrong? Sure. Usually it's because of people and their ego, right? This is the number one thing. Ego. They have an ego, they have wants and desire. Now, the Buddha said the cause of human suffering is desire, right? The number one cause is desire. Why am I suffering? Because I desire something else, right? Why is this happening? So you look at a recovery program. Now, some people got to be careful with recovery, and that's one of the reasons we've taken the approach with this channel versus selling leads to rehabs and stuff, because I'm not comfortable. Not all rehabs are good. Not all recovery programs are good. Sometimes there's bad things in certain stuff. You got to find it. You got to be in charge of your own stuff. And a lot of times what you're going to look at is the ego is involved. You got people talking about, people being mean to people or abusing people or whatever. And that just happens because you're putting a lot of people in a one place that have issues, right? Like there's nowhere in the world you'd take a bunch of people who are like, this guy drank for 20 years. He used to fall over. One day he peed on himself, and we're going to put him in this room with a bunch of other people, and we want him to have his little tie on and be perfect, right? It's not going to happen. So we got to look at that. And we have to, number one, check our ego. And number two, also look for good in other people. That doesn't mean be completely vulnerable and open with everyone we meet. It means exactly what it means. Be open, listen, talk to others, right? Does that make sense? I know you have a lot more experience in this area than I do.
Oh, that's it. Absolutely. When I go to meetings, I try to listen. That's the most important thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I get stuff from people that have 1 day sober. I get things that help me to people that are 30 years sober,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. Sometimes the 30-year sober guy's going to say something that I just don't agree with, or whatever. I take what I feel is going to help me, and
Yeah.
leave the rest. It's okay. That I'm just practicing being human, and that's what the meetings help me figure out how to do that.
Yeah. And same thing with this talk. The talks that we do here, I don't know everything. I've been sober 4 years. I know what's worked for me. I've read a lot, but I'm not the be all end all. Right? Sometimes you'll hear me say something and be like, yeah, okay, whatever, Marcus. Yeah. All right, I'm not going to listen to that. And you have to look at that and you have to say, well, you know what? Let's take the good, let's leave the bad, and let's focus on what works for me. Let's focus on what's working for you. And if it works for you, that is good. And follow that and keep doing what works and check the ego. Say, this is what I'm doing. This is what works. I don't know what other people might do. And that's what the mindfulness comes down to is one, if you are discontented, it's because you desire something. If you are suffering, I desire to feel different about a situation, so I want to drink. That's desire, right? I desire everyone in recovery meetings to be perfect. That's your desire. If you want it that way and you get there and it's not that way, you're going to be disappointed. I want more money. I thought sobriety was going to be better than this. I thought I was going to be rich in a year. I thought everything was going to come together. I didn't realize that the court was going to come after me and do this. Or I didn't realize that, that ticket wouldn't go away or whatever it is, right? You're desiring something different rather than saying, well, hey, I drank. I did this stuff. Let's go patch it up and do what we got to do, and let's move on. And I think that helps as well. All right, let's take a couple others because I do have to get out of here right at 12.
Sounds good.
All
Jamie
right.
says, 22 days sober today. Challenge one coming this Saturday. My sister's restaurant is opening this weekend, and it's for friends and family. And alcohol will be involved, so I got a tough one ahead. And yeah, it can be tough, but have a game plan. If you've got somebody that is on your phone list that knows you're not drinking, and they're not attending this event, make sure they know about it. That's one tool you can use, and then you can call them right before you go, while you're there,
Take them
afterwards.
with you.
That'll help with your accountability. Another thing is think about what you're going to drink
Mm-hmm.
that's non-alcoholic when you get there, and have that. What a really popular one with sober people is 7 Up with a splash of cranberry juice. That's a great one, or whatever you like to have that's not alcoholic. Sparkling water. There's lots of things you can do, but try to go in with a game plan, think it out, and just be open-minded to it, and try not to drink. If you have to walk away, walk away. You can go outside and take a
Mm-hmm.
few minutes, and then go back in and not drink. And then when people are telling you, hey, take a shot, and you just say no. This is what I do. I just say no, thank you. I don't tell them I don't drink or anything like that. There's no reason to have that stress of people. Then they say, well, why don't you drink? I just say no, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it.
You don't owe anyone an explanation.
That's right.
It does not. I mean, I just don't drink because I don't. Say you're allergic to it, you know,
There you
or
go.
whatever. Just say you don't. I'm not drinking today, or whatever. I mean, whatever you got to do. Um, yeah, let's see. A couple others here. Stephanie says, "Did anyone ever have the religion drive them to drink?" Yes, I was one of those. I very much was like that. And I'm not going to say it drove me because I'm an alcoholic. Being an alcoholic is what drives me to drink. But that certainly didn't help. Um, it didn't help my thought process, didn't help the way that I viewed the world. And maybe I was looking at it too egotistical. Maybe I was too involved. Who knows? But the fact of the matter was, you know, it was a big part in it. And I found that my beliefs kind of changed as I got sober. And I started to realize that, hey, I'm not the be all end all. Hey, I'm not all that important. Hey, I'm, you know, one of 8 billion of God or higher powers kids, right? I can't sit there and be like, well, I was born in America and I did this and I did that and I preached. No different, right? Other people probably better than me, right? Probably a lot better. But we look at that and we're like, hey, you know what? Let's check our egos. Let's just say, I don't know. And you know, yeah.
Everything drove me to drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
God drove me to drink. Not getting a promotion drove me to drink. Getting a promotion drove me to drink.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
not having the money I needed drove me to drink. Having the money I needed drove me to drink. Everything.
Yeah.
I drank because I'm an
You drink.
alcoholic.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. And we can look at reasons. But I find that the reason, like for me, I didn't get sober and then deal with all my religious stuff from the past. I got sober, and as a byproduct, it was like, wow, this isn't as important as I thought it was. My own beliefs about myself and humanity just kind of changed. It wasn't like I went out and I worked on them. They just changed as a result of not drinking, because I found that not drinking got my mind off of me. And the worst place for me to be is thinking about myself. Oh, why did that person do this? I should get that. I deserve this. I should have this. Things should be this way. That person should be nicer. I should be able to drink. Whatever it is, those were thoughts about me. And when I was able to say, why? Why does this matter so much? Then it kind of went away, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm not as important as I thought I was.
Right.
You know? Like for me, I remember, I think I told Terry one time, I was like, the most eye-opening thing in rehab was that I was gone from the world for 30 days, and the world didn't stop. Like, I literally thought, okay, well, what the hell, man? My business, this people are going to be angry. No one gave a shit. You know, some people were like, yay, go Marcus, but no one really cared. No one's lives really stopped. And it made me look at myself and be like, wow, all right. And that could be either be the most depressing thing in the world if you continue looking at yourself, or it could be the most liberating, because now I'm like, doesn't matter. I'm free to be, think, feel however I want to, because that doesn't matter anymore. All right, let's see a couple others here. Anyone standing out at you, Terry?
Well, this one we need to address. S. Williams says, I want to quit drinking, but I'm having such a hard time, I don't even know where to start. And where you start is you go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
The doctor's not going to judge you. They deal with people that are trying to quit drinking all the time. You can do this. You just got to get there. The doctor can help steer you in the right direction as far as whether you need detox, or if you're able to just start by going to meetings, getting a program, following our program, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the place to start, because detoxing is dangerous. It can be fatal. I mean, it's a dangerous thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an important one.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of religious stuff, which is fun because I think our title kind of sums up that.
Brings up a lot of passion.
Yes, passion, which is good. Passion is good. Let's see here. First step is admitting you have a problem. Absolutely. Um, THC says it's like my past comes alive as soon as alcohol gets in my system. Yeah, that's my fear, is that it's going to reignite everything, and it's going to put me on that, because there's like 2 levels, right? You have this level of thinking where it's ego-driven level, and your ego-driven level of thinking is like, why did they do that to me? Why does this happen to me? You know, different level of thinking. And your higher level of thinking, which is the spiritual level of thinking, if you want to call it that, would be less about the you and more about, hey, this is just what's going on. I find that drinking, even just like one back when I was drinking, would put me in that loop. Just tweak me just enough to where I couldn't control it and I couldn't find a way out. And finding a way out of those thought processes is key. And if you drink and get rid of the ability to get your way out of it, you're going to be stuck in it. And that's where this loop comes in. So we got to watch for that.
That's right.
All right, let's see. Any other major ones standing out there? And how do you guys like this topic? I know it was a different one, but if you guys like it, let us know. And we'll use that info to pick other topics.
Hey, good to see you, Sachin. You're late. Let's see. Well, like you said, a lot of religious ones. GHC Gamer, I like all your comments. You have some good comments there. Let's see. Let me pick one of them. I'm a Christian. Word of God is not forced into anyone. God wants followers to come to Him and choose His way of life. Anyone who has another. Oh, higher power that is positive and all good, and I don't judge. And that's for me too. Is I just try to, I have my own beliefs, and other people can believe what they want, and that's all good.
Yeah,
I
cool.
know what keeps me sober. A lot of people have said stuff like that on this on our comment thread right now.
Stephanie has an interesting one. She talks about her issues with religion and the problems she had with it, about being shamed. I came from a church that was big on shaming. It's a very terrible thing to do, and it's a very non-understanding thing to do. Because if you really believe certain things you believe, then you're like, I believe that if you really read the words of like Jesus or whatever, you're going to have a different compassion for people. Like, you can't not. Now, if you don't, you ain't reading it right. Right? And you're going to have a compassion that says, hey, you know what? I'm no different. I'm no better. I can't do better. Like, I look at life this way. If I was Stephanie and I grew up exactly how she did, I'd do exactly what she did. If I grew up like Terry and I grew up when he did, where he did, went to school, had the same experiences, I would be him. Regardless. You could say, well, Marcus is different. Terry's this way. But it's not. If you were in someone else's shoes, you'd be exactly where they are. So I look at that as a way of, I can't judge you, and I have no right to, because it's a product of circumstance. Does this mean don't judge right and wrong? No, it doesn't mean that. Obviously, if someone does wrong, they should be punished for it legally and all that. But it does mean understand the backstory. And I know my wife and I get into this because there's certain checkered people in our family. And sometimes she's like, I don't want to be around that person, and that guy's a dick or whatever. And I'll be like, well, if you look at their upbringing, you can kind of understand why they're that way. Now, that doesn't mean take their shit. It doesn't mean, be abused by them. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means, hey, I got a little glimpse into why they are the way they are. So yeah, as far as shaming, I would never go that way. Drink shaming is terrible. Like, shaming an alcoholic is bad, because as an alcoholic, we shame ourselves 24 hours a day. I was guilty 24 hours a day. I felt shame 24 hours a day. Yeah. And when someone comes to me and is like, oh, goddamn, you lazy drunk or whatever, why do you do that? That didn't help. And people did do that, and it didn't help. What does help is someone coming by and saying, you know what? I've been through this. I've been through that. I know what it's like to feel shame. I know what it's like to get shamed. I know what it's like to feel this. I know what it's like to think this way, and I understand. That is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful things we can do as humans is understand other people and listen. So yeah, with that, unless there's any very last-minute ones, let us know. I did figure out one thing. The lights are nice, but they're hot. So it's like 1,000 degrees in here.
So we're going to see you in a tank top next week. Okay.
There we go. I'll turn the air on, which is kind of loud, but that's all right. All right, guys. So till next time, stay sober. If there's any last-minute ones, Richard, congrats on 148 days. That is awesome. And we'll see you next week. If you guys got ideas for next week's topic, I don't think it's the Super Bowl yet. We're going to do a special Super Bowl one on how to not drink at the Super Bowl parties and stuff. If you go to the actual Super Bowl, we'll help you with that too. But I don't know why that's different, but that'll help out. All right, so stay sober. Type some topics that you want us to cover, and we'll see you guys next week.
Right on. Bye bye, everybody.